Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, 𝗪𝗲𝗹.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, 𝗪𝗲𝗹.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, 𝗪𝗲𝗹.
Hi, everyone. Okay, there's a lot of echo. Am I audible, 𝗪𝗹 and 𝗪𝗲𝗹? Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Yes, you are.
Okay, great. I guess we're live. A quick introduction on the people that have joined us here. 𝗪𝗹 from Singapore heads the resultics for the region in APAC. Hi, 𝗪𝗹. Welcome.
Thank you, 𝗪𝗪𝗻. Glad to be here with you.
𝗪𝗲𝗹, thanks for joining. You're based in Chennai. Absolute pleasure always interacting with you. Thanks for coming on this session today.
Hi, 𝗪𝗪𝗻. Thank you so much.
Okay, folks, well, we'll be talking about some of the hottest topics today on omnichannel marketing broadly, but also getting insights from the speakers on how exactly are these organizations trying to navigate this crowded ecosystem. Let me jump straight into the questions for 𝗪𝗹. I'd like you to go first, please. According to you, what is omnichannel marketing? How would you define it?
Okay, good. So the first one is aimed at me. Okay. Well, in order to define 𝗪𝗪𝗻, what is omnichannel marketing, let me first start with the myth, which is there in the market, right? So often omnichannel is a confused terminology, right? Omnichannel is not being about everywhere and being all things for every customer, right? What matters is showing up at the right customer at the right time and where it really matters. We marketers call it the moment of truth. Thus, the omnichannel marketing, from a definition perspective, is cross-channel marketing discipline that harmonizes the content delivery across various marketing channels to provide a continuous and a consistent content experience across the buyer's journey and beyond, right? That's from a definition perspective. And there are some key components, that the omnichannel marketing has, right? So first is the marketing channel mix. The channels, emails, SMS, in-app notifications, WhatsApp, Line, Viber in this part of the world. The second is, yes, you're using these channels, but how do you kind of be continuous, consistent, and relevant across these channels, right? How do you stitch these channels all together? The third component is the personalization, right? So a lot of marketers today do A/B testing. They design the ad copies. They design the campaign copies according to the TG, according to the segment that they're serving, right? And the last component, as far as I'm concerned, from an omnichannel perspective, is optimization. So you keep harmonizing, yes, these channels, you keep harmonizing your campaigns, but you continuously optimize, right? So that's in a nutshell, from a definition perspective, from a myth perspective, and the key components, 𝗪𝗪𝗻.
Appreciate your answer. Thanks, 𝗪𝗹. I think this is pretty detailed in the way you've explained it and very simple for people to understand what really defines an omnichannel marketing as such. 𝗪𝗲𝗹, let me come straight to you. I know you've been in the industry for very, very long, and you've got a very strong experience in not just selling side, but also from a delivery side. If I was to ask you, channel marketing versus customer experience, which is usually a very, like 𝗪𝗹 said, very confused terminology, how would you separate the two? What, according to you, would be omni-channel marketing and versus customer experience, really?
Yeah, 𝗪𝗪𝗻, that's a very nice question. In fact, 𝗪𝗹 touched upon some aspects of it. Of course, he spoke more about omnichannel marketing. To me, while the overlap between the two are fairly large, I would probably say a customer experience is much more larger And omnichannel plays a lot in terms of helping building a great customer experience. That's the way I see it. Today, we want to look at it, primarily in terms of the influx of digital channels more and more. What's happening primarily, this overlap is actually kind of getting much, much more larger, because that's when the omni-channel word is becoming more powerful. Now, coming back to customer experience, primarily to deliver a great customer experience is coming together of product, sales, marketing, service, support, everything put together. But your omni-channel marketing is more to do with how do you kind of communicate with customers seamlessly across different touch points. That's primarily where it, whereas customer experience is some total of a lot of things. That's primarily where it is. And but then, as I said, with more and more digital touch point between the customer and the brand, I think there is a tendency for this overlap to only increase. I hope I answered your question.
You did, absolutely, yes. And I'll take some cues from how you've responded to this question and get back to Saurabh again. Saurabh, we've been in pitches together. We've been asked this question, but I would really like to dig your brains on the key ingredients for successful omni-channel marketing itself. What do you think would define the key ingredients for successful omni-channel marketing experience for brands?
Good question, right? So when I'm talking to some of these technology guys, some of these marketeers, right, I encourage them to take a step backwards, right, and make them think that what they are selling today is not the product or the service. What they are really selling today is the experience, right? Now, for that experience, or for that omni-channel, there are some key ingredients required, right? The first and foremost is the data, and I'm sure you heard this question, Narayanan, while you were practicing marketeer, that we don't have enough data, or we have loads of data, right? So that's the first requirement. The second is the channels, right? Again, those channels which a marketer thinks are relevant, where his TG is. And through the data and the channels, the next ingredient that I lay emphasis on is basically the ability to personalize and individualize. And last but not the least is, attribution, the analytics, and, the machines taking over through AI and machine learning, right? So long answer, but this is basically the ingredient part. And the second part of the question, Himanshu, was, what are the tools that we are leveraging today, in order to achieve these ingredients? So tools from a data perspective, the technology has been really evolved. There are multiple phases of technology that we've seen. So from Excel sheets to, SQL data stores, technologies like data warehouses have emerged, data lakes have emerged, data marts have emerged. And now the marketers are now talking about the CDP, right? So data is coming from multiple sources, right? CRM, POS, apps, transactional data, structured data, unstructured data. There are first-party data, there are second and third-party data. So the ability, the tools that are there to kind of curate this data, massage that data. So that's the tool number one, right? Tools to manage your data. The second that I'm talking about is the channel, right? So SMS, emails, these are the known channels, right? And obviously everybody has a different affinity towards using, a particular channel. Himanshu might be an SMS guy, Narayanan might be an email guy, but Saurabh, me, I'm an in-app notifications guy, right? So the right tools to kind of manage the channels. Lot of individualization and personalization tools. So tools that are there in the market, from an A/B testing perspective, from content management perspective. Himanshu, you yourself come from a content management system background, right? So tools around next best offers. So these are the important tools and ingredients from an omni-channel perspective, to answer you, Himanshu.
Fair. I take complete respect in the way the ecosystem really has evolved, and how you put it from data to experience, that really defines how we've evolved over the years as an industry. So thanks for answering that.
Good.
So do you have any questions for any of us?
Yeah, Narayanan has a very strong, as a practitioner background, right? And he's a very strong guy from a technology standpoint. And I talked about the evolution of technology, right, from some SQL databases to data lake, big data, data warehouses. So Narayanan, specifically from a marketing perspective, how are these words, the buzzwords, very different from a CDP, and why do brands and specifically marketers need to have a CDP?
Yes, Saurabh, I think there have been a lot of such terminology being floating around the market: data lake, data mart, data warehouse, and then you have CDP. Typically, there's a huge tendency to kind of use all these things very, very loosely, right? Of course, all of them are to that extent have one common underlying thread, which is nothing but they're all repositories of data. But then the similarity between them stops there. Each of it has got a very, very different purpose. So instead of getting into what is a data warehouse, is to be a data mart, etc., let's kind of take everything on one side and then CDP on the other side for the sake of discussion here. Now, CDP primarily from a purpose of for what it is being created, for whom it is being created, right? What it's going to be the usage of CDP, right? All these things what really different. For example, CDP essentially is a platform that organizations create to have a very, very seamless and intelligent customer engagement with customers. That's primarily where it comes from. So to that extent, it is a platform that is being created for marketing to kind of do the communication and the engagement. To that extent, it kind of houses a lot of information about customer, their engagements, etc. It could be real time, it could be coming in batch mode, etc. And more importantly, why it is normally kind of kept aside separately is that the moment you kind of start putting everything as part of an enterprise data warehouse or a data mart, it becomes hugely dependent on other stakeholders to kind of make any changes to these data, right? And a lot of times, certain data that a CDP may want to kind of have may not be relevant in the overall scheme of the organization, so it may not warrant taking it to a data warehouse, etc. So broadly, I would say it's very, very CDP's got a very specific purpose for which gets created from a perspective of very, very strong customer contextual engagement across different channels like Omni-Channel, and that's where it is.
Got it. Thanks, Narayanan. This helps because, when we are talking to the customers, when we are on the field, when we are talking to the partners, a lot of people kind of confuse their organizational efforts around analytics programs on data warehouse, data lakes with, what they really need from a marketing standpoint, which is a customer information hub or a CDP, right? So, thanks for your explanation around this. I have another question for you, Narayanan, and that is, we talked about certain tools, right, from an omni-channel marketing perspective, right? How is, omni-channel marketing automation different from a CRM and from the other pointed so-called campaign management tools? Because that's also a confusion in the market.
And absolutely, Saurabh. Here is again another area of very blurring lines, right? Primarily in terms of there is a tendency in the market to kind of use these terms again very, very loosely. If you see, CRM was one of the first to kind of arrive, then came the campaign management system, and then came the omnichannel marketing automation system. But there again, CRM started slowly encroaching the space of campaign management by allowing certain ability to kind of push certain campaigns. But otherwise, the CRM primarily was more to kind of do a lead management and do case management. That's primarily where the original purpose was. But then we slowly started getting into campaigns, etc., where they send email, they can SMS, so they encroach in the space of campaign management. Then came the whole lot of campaign management specialists, platforms whose job was to kind of provide very cutting-edge solutions with respect to sending out campaigns. Then came marketing automation. Now, CRM platforms and campaign management platforms thought that omni-channel platforms are trying to kind of come and take away something that everybody started using the word omni-channel. But omni-channel marketing automation essentially should have really the capability to kind of orchestrate a stitched journeys of customers across different touch points seamlessly, right? They are not just a kind of bundle of channels together. It's a question of how do you kind of, look at get a single view of the customer. How do you kind of orchestrate your communication with the customer seamlessly between touch points? How do you bring back that intelligence back when it comes to your engagement? So it's a whole lot. So I think there's a whole lot of difference between an omnichannel marketing automation and the so-called CRMs and pure play campaign management systems. I hope, Saurabh, it addresses your question.
Yes, it does. And I often, put this example to my customers that I think the biggest confusion they see is, with the CRM, because CRM today has three core pillars, right? The Salesforce automation piece, the marketing automation piece, and then the services automation piece, right? So what often is the confusion point is the marketing automation piece, right? Or MDM as we know it in a few CRMs. But I think your answer really helps, and people who are listening and who have confusion around differentiation between omni-channel and CRM have got that clarity. Himanshu, I have a question from you, right? So we've talked about omni-channel, we've talked about customer experiences. Now, specifically talking about tools required for omni-channel. I did cover a few, but what are the tools required, right? Give us a few examples that you see your customers using from tools perspective for omni-channel marketing.
Well, yeah, I think all of us have really learned the, the tool set really in a MarTech stack out of experience. But if there are viewers here or people who are listening to us, there's a whole lot of confusion out there. We've all gone through this. Every company is saying the same thing. Everyone's trying to sell the same stack, but on the outside, it looks confusing. But you really start detailing things out. You start to understand what every other tool really does. And a great view that someone told me, which I've learned over the years as well through experiences. Well, marketing automation in itself is a huge tech stack, and we've learned this as as competition grows, as even our product scales up. The way we are trying to sell into the enterprise. Let me categorize it right from the very beginning, right? So at the very fundamental of an omni-channel marketing stack, or MarTech stack as they call it, is the CDP, is the customer data platform itself, which is the single source of truth for how and what customers are doing, and what segment of customers are doing, really. What channels are they preferring? What's their open rates? What segment they fall under? What's their language preference? Things like that, right? So CDP right at the heart of the MarTech stack. Something which is preferable but not really necessary is CRM itself. A lot of people, a lot of organizations or brands start with CRM, which is the sales side of it, and then start to stitch CDP and call CRM as a data source, which is fine as well. So CDP at the heart of it, CRM optional, perhaps necessary for some companies, but then literally is the marketing automation tool set itself, which is in all definitions is also named as an omni-channel platform as such, which builds the communication channel, the orchestration channel, the stack where channels get integrated into the automation piece itself. So that's a huge pillar in this stack. And of course, then there are content management systems. There are systems that get built where data sources come in and content resides, which then throws up personalized content when when companies visit the website or an app as such. Around these 3 or 4 pillars is the analytics, the thread that really gets us insights into what customers are doing as they progress through the brand journey itself. So analytics is the key pillar. It's a key piece. There are separate tools available. There are stitched-in tools which exist out there. Each brand has its own theory of evaluation, according to how they look at the brand in terms of their end customers as such. So long answer to your question, really: CDP, CRM, marketing automation, CMS, and then the analytics piece. That's for me how a MarTech stack lines up.
Good. Thanks a lot, Himanshu, and thanks a lot, Himanshu, for this particular answer. So the bedrock for data, as you're saying, is CDP. Then optional is CRM. Nice to have, not a must to have. Then obviously for your campaign orchestration, segmentation, you need a marketing automation platform. then obviously you need a good content management system, right? So that you can personalize for every visitor through campaigns online. And eventually you want a lot of campaign analytics to come, what's working, what's not working, which channel is attributing, which is not. So pretty helpful. Narayanan, do you have any questions for me or Himanshu?
Definitely, I would be wanting to ask Himanshu this question because I know he's been kind of going around talking to a lot of customers. I'm sure each of these customers are at different stages with respect to their evolution on the omni-channel, journey. So, Himanshu, when you talk to brands, right, typically in terms of where do you think typically these brands should start their omni-channel journey? I'm sure a lot of brands have already been trying to do a lot of stuff. So, where do you think these brands are to start?
Fair question, really, Narayanan. I think in these times, which are unprecedented, digital's taken over literally all parts of lives, especially so for brands which were driven, by traditional marketing. It's now all digital for every one of them. A lot of brands that I talk to have already embarked on this journey, and this is an evolving space as such. But most companies which are not digital natives or cloud first, for them, this is really a starting point, and this has pushed boundaries to a different conversation. If I was to ask this question by a customer, I would definitely continue to emphasize on the data piece itself. Data is key. It is the true starting point for every company to look at. If data is in not the right or not the correct format, that's the first exercise really that a brand should undertake to normalize and harmonize data. Get the data right first is the right strategy, and anyone who's doing so is already winning half the battle in their journey to optimize omni-channel experience for their end customers. Of course, once you get the data layer right, channel of communication could be your second best thing to encounter. You can start with one or two channels as such, preferably emails and SMS, which is a no-brainer for most Indian companies. At least in the urban space, emails well accepted. SMS, spans really the entire spectrum of communications for the end consumer. So SMS, email by far should be the leading channels to integrate into your data sources. And of course, once you've got your head around communication itself, the brands can then start to track their end customers' journey as such, and then build journeys which they want their customers to embark on. And that can happen with a great analytics tool. So invest in the right data analytical tool. Once you've got this, I think one layer after the other, you can start to build that ocean of communication for your end customers. So once you've had that, then of course the new age ML algorithms, they work wonders. Let the machine start to throw out recommendations on what their customers' preferences be. And I think brands then would be on a well-defined journey to get very, very digitally savvy as such. Narayanan, hope that gives a clear understanding to your viewers. Saurabh, I know from our past experience as well, and if I was to get you in this conversation, which team do you think, according to you, is responsible for omni-channel marketing automation as such? We've spoken to multiple people, multiple stakeholders at the customer end. According to you, do you have a definition which decides the team that should be responsible for omni-channel marketing automation as such?
Good question, Himanshu. It's very important in today's era of specialization, right? So there is no definition, unfortunately, for this. But Look, I'm a very strong believer of one fact that, omni-channel marketing or digital experiences is not just about technology, but it's about three important imperatives, right? It's about the people, it's about the process, and it's about technology. So we talked about the technology aspect some time back, but now the question is more around people, right? So in my experience, it's not just the on-premise teams or managing business online teams. It's all about harmonizing your efforts for that moment of truth for your customers. And to that effect, different companies have a different strategy from a digital team perspective. But we've seen roles emerge like a chief digital officer, chief experience officer, CRM officer, chief design officer, chief product officer, right? Chief customer officer. And the distinction between the brand marketeers and performance marketeers is slowly blurring, right? So in my view, it's a collective responsibility. But if I was to give you a very high level answer, it is basically the responsibility of a performance marketing team in conjunction with the CRM team, right? And I don't know if you've heard about a terminology, which is again a new terminology emerged just a few years back. It's called marketecture, right? So it's very important to have that kind of an alignment between IT's architecture and the databases of the Silicon Valley, which has predominantly been a marketer's job, right? So it's marketecture, it's a collective effort, but the single throat to choke is definitely the performance marketing team along with the CRM team. I hope I'm able to answer your question.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely, yes. You're right.
So, Saurabh, I'm very curious to ask you this question, right? A lot of brands who really want to do omni-channel, they've been kind of thinking to do, not to do. Of course, now most of the brands have started doing. But what do you think typically are those kind of very compelling use cases that primarily drive brands to, embark on a journey of so-called omni-channel marketing, or probably building a very superior customer experience using this omni-channel stack?
Okay, good question. Right, like a analytics program in an organization, right? When I interact with marketers, and some of these are very young guys, right? I mean, they want to do a lot of things very quickly, and they have a lot of lot of data points to play around with, and a lot of other things to look at. Often the strategy that I advise to these customers is, guys, adopt a strategy of crawl, walk, run, and dance, right? Get to the use cases which are very important for you, right? Just get simple use cases off the ground, right? So for example, if there is a use case with social, right, that's very quick to kind of get into, right? So go live with social in about a week, 2 weeks time frame, and that's what our technology promises, right? So go live with a simple email, in about 2 weeks time frame. So simple use cases, start seeing the benefits, then move on to a little complexity from a use case standpoint, and then kind of go on to a canvas which is a multi-channel campaign use cases, right? So that's my usual advice to the customers, and luckily the customers are kind of towing that particular line. But like I said, some of these young guys, they want to do everything in the first go. But it's a journey. It's a journey, and people need to understand that this is not a plug and play kind of software, right? There is a journey, there is a strategy. You kind of take baby steps towards your eventual goal.
Very aptly put, sort of. It reminds me of a conversation I was having earlier this week. Uh, you know, Customers have, or really, the performance marketing team, the people responsible for customer acquisition for a brand, if they're given an objective to acquire more customers for their own brand, there is literally, no questions asked if they go out there and spray and pray on the customer acquisition. These 100,000 people to be able to convert as many as possible, which gives rise to the exact same thing that you currently mentioned. Um, I think it's important to crawl and walk first before you start to go out there and run. So absolutely agree with you there. Um, I think we're almost at the end of the session. I'll just leave this before we get to the questions from the viewers. I'll open this question for both Saurabh, you and Narayanan. How do you see omni-channel marketing customer experience evolve post the pandemic? I think enough has been said about the pandemic itself, but how you're seeing the customer experience evolve post these trying times. So you want to
So maybe I'll take that question.
Yeah.
go ahead, Narayan.
First, yeah, sure. I think yes, absolutely. As people being in the digital industry, one way probably the pandemic has done a lot of acceleration of businesses towards digital. So that's a no-brainer, right? So obviously, as a fallout of it, essentially more and more touch points are on digital. Today we have brands just saying you don't have to even come to the store, just order via WhatsApp, just kind of place your order via Facebook, or you just come to the website, select the product, and then you will have somebody kind of show the same product to you in the physical world via tab. So a lot of things are happening in that space. So to that extent, I would definitely think the pandemic has really kind of accelerated the progress of brands towards omni-channel. That's for sure. But the only thing is that in the hurry, a lot of brands are trying to do it in their own way, which I'm sure once things settle down, I think organizations will mature on that.
Great. Saurabh, do you wanna add some flavor to it?
Yeah, I mean, I heard the hurry part, right? And I was just reading a Harvard Business Review article yesterday that how brands must accelerate the value realization on the digital post-COVID, right? So I think this article was spot on. It talked about how speed has been never so vital, right? So business can unlock a return on investment if they quickly progress from ideation to design to prototyping to implementation, right? And the COVID timeframe has, kind of amplified that there is no shortage of attention focused on the growing power that a customer holds today in their relationships with the brand. If anything, this view is reinforced further with each passing day post-COVID. And brands are today awakening to the new levels of customer power. I mean, again, I don't know if you got a chance to hear Chip from Levi's. They are far better than what they had initially envisaged, and thanks to digital, right? I mean, they went about with concepts like buy online, pick up curbside, right? So every brand has done something differently, and there is a strong need, even more from a contactless standpoint, to reach out to your TG and your segments in a very different manner. That's what I wanted to add.
Great. Well, thanks. We're almost at the end of our session. Why don't we pick up some of the questions that the viewers are asking? First and foremost, apologies to Siddhant. Yes, there was some technical issue as we went live. Siddhant Rijwani, there was echo. I hope you guys got past that and we were able to answer and get across to the viewers as such. We have a question from, let me take the last one first, from Manisha. And again, Narayan and Saurabh, feel free to give your thoughts. The question is, how can we identify which media appeals to our audience across all channels to achieve the business goals? Quite broad, but quite relevant in today's day.
Narayan, you want to take it?
I'll take the. Absolutely. Honestly, I don't think it's question of just picking up something like a channel all of a sudden. Primarily, you need to kind of give it time and also really try to understand in terms of what's happening, right? This is where some bit of persistence on of these channels are important. Then over a period of time, you tend to understand in terms of what's happening. No, but the challenge here in this case is that there are a lot of tools in the market which talks about omni-channel marketing automation, etc. Still, most of these tools which primarily help you engage with the audience are very siloed. So each of them use the orchestration is done in each of these channels separately. So there is a real problem to kind of get a real understanding, attribution in terms of which channel is working vis-a-vis the other, etc. Now, that's where essentially there are some platforms, like 𝗪𝗪𝗂𝗧, which are actually trying to kind of orchestrate the engagement across all the channels from the same platform and use a certain technology like smart links, really understand in terms of which channel is the customer engaging, where the, how to do single touch attributions, multi-touch attribution, etc. And only when you do those things, and of course, with time, you try to understand propensity of customers towards channel, etc., can you really kind of go and put your bet on a specific channel? So till such time, I think a lot of wait and watch. I hope I addressed the question.
I hope so too. So Manisha, that was a great question right there. 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗀𝗃 asks this, and I think 𝗪𝗓, you'll be apt in responding to this. Do you think traditional theories and approaches work in an omni-channel world? Traditional theory, I'm guessing traditional marketing theories would be more the question really. So 𝗪𝗓.
Well, I think the answer is yes, right? The concepts from a marketing perspective haven't changed. The P's of the marketing, the C's of the marketing that we've talked about. It's just a new application, right? So I've heard brands talking about that marketing has changed so much in the last 3 years or 4 years that it hasn't in the last 20, right? So my answer is that, the marketing has not changed, right? It's just the ways and means and channels. The newer technologies have emerged. So the traditional theories still apply. But in order for you to practice, the C's and the P's, there are newer ways to reach out to your TG, right? Explore those, and that's the answer that I want to give. So the traditional ways still exist. The brick and mortar, I mean, the case studies, right? It's not that the brick and mortar is extinct today. It is not. The companies that are growing, that have bought brick and mortar, and those have digital presence. So the traditional theories apply definitely, but there are newer tools for you to leverage. And if you don't leverage, you'll be left out, Ankita.
Yeah, absolutely, 𝗪𝗓. No, exactly my experience as well. It's a new avenue to explore for brands, really. Let me take this one from Brijesh, which it's fascinating to see so many of these plugins coming in from different social profiles, right? So LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube right now. So Brijesh asks this question, and this is on YouTube. What challenges do most organizations face on their path to seamless cross-channel coordination? Okay, that's deep. Narayanan, over to you. What, according to you, would those challenges be?
Honestly, for me, the challenge was, of course, from a tool set perspective, there are some challenges. But more than that, I would primarily say it's a change management and mindset, right? As marketers, how much ever we talk about, channel, we talk about. So I think from somewhere we have evolved to a multi-channel way of engaging with customers, and still there's a lot of thinking process which is very siloed. Think on one channel perspective. So I think first of all, in the mind, I think we should be able to start thinking about unifying the customer engagement across multi-channel channel. I think that's the first block, which I definitely find. The second, of course, is your understanding of what works for certain customers and certain channels, and how to use that information contextually and then engage them. Now, that really requires some solid tool sets that are needed there. But more importantly, for me, I would say ability to kind of think about customer engagement across multitude of channels than thinking in terms of one channel at a time. I think that's the first mental block. I think once we cross it, the tools, process, technologies, I think fall in place.
So Himanshu, let me answer Brijesh, right? The challenges, and these are some real world practical problems. Now, Brijesh, look at it. I'll give you an example of a use case, right? So I go onto a website. My son is about to go, into university and looking at, the study loans. I go into a website and go to a bank website, go to the particular page which talks about the student loans, right? Now, when I log back in, the bank's website is not able to recognize me. That means they don't have a proper digital analytics that, this particular persona, unknown maybe, right, was here some time back, went onto this particular page, studied that page for 5 minutes, and that information is totally not there, right? So that's one aspect on one channel. Now, if we are talking to different customers on different channels, I think the biggest challenge that the brands face is stitching all those channels together, right? The message is often distorted. You're possibly getting one offer from your telco on your SMS. The same telco is offering you a different offer on application, and the same telco is giving you a different offer on email, right? And that's happening because the plumbing is not seamless. So that's the biggest challenge, right? How to solve for that plumbing? You're using separate tools and silos. So you need to think about your tool strategy, which kind of orchestrates everything, keeping the customer at the center. I hope we've answered you, Brijesh.
Well, yeah. Sort of, we've seen these cracks before in brands, so I'm pretty sure you did answer that question. I'll just take one more, but also thank some lovely comments out there from Uday and Yuv. Let me take this question from Govind. Govind asks, Govind Saragi asks, "Hi, what do you think is the role of IoT in omnichannel?" That's a first for me, really. Narayanan, most qualified one.
Yeah, I think IoT is always exciting. I think with more and more influx of IoT, I think omni-channel play is going to get a lot more interesting. For example, I was actually talking to one of my product team members the other day. The real envisaging today is that the omni-channel has to go much beyond email, SMS, push notifications, right? It should kind of be into the car dashboard, right? When, for example, customer is kind of nearing home, should we be able to say, what you're about to, and the time for dinner is now, you're about another 200 meters away from home, and here is an offer on a pizza for you, and should be available on the car dashboard. I think that's the ultimate, reach of omni-channel. So coming back, I think IoT is going to make this play extremely interesting because IoT gives you a lot of information about the context of the customer, a lot more than we've seen many such use cases where, we ourselves kind of done some kind of POCs there where the customer wants to kind of switch on the air conditioner, says to an Alexa, and Alexa says it's time for you to kind of replace your, filter, and then, you have, by the way, offer going right now for a free service, like something like that. So I think that the play is going to be a lot more interesting with IoT kind of emerging.
Fair. Thank you so much for your thoughts, Narayanan. I guess we're absolutely now in time to thank our viewers. Thanks for your questions and for your attendance and time. Thank you, Saurabh and Narayanan, for joining us. We'll come back on some other topic very soon in these social channels. Thanks again, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Himanshu. Thanks, Narayanan. Lovely to be here.
Thank you all. Thanks for the time, Himanshu and Saurabh. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.